The Eagles might be the weirdest 4-0 team I've seen in recent memory, at least since the 2020 Pittsburgh Steelers, who went 11-0 and then kind of crashed and burned towards the end of the season. Now, I hope the Eagles don't do that this year, but they definitely have some flaws. The Commanders are coming off a humiliating loss. They lost 37-3 against Buffalo. Sam Howell just didn't look altogether. He took a lot of sacks, had a lot of turnovers, and that was his first true bad game in the NFL. And for a guy that's trying to earn the starting gig long term, he has to respond. And boy, did he respond. First drive, on time, on point, slicing up the Eagles defense, who still has a really good defensive line. And they got in his face pretty often, but still hang tough in the pocket. And honestly, Washington dominated that first half. They were up 17-7. A late field goal helped the Eagles kind of rally and regain the lead in that third quarter. But I really like what I see out of Washington out of 4 games so far this season. That's mainly thanks to Eric Bieniemy, and I think he's really starting to show that he is an offensive guru worthy of being a head coach in this league. He brings a lot of Chiefs concepts. Maybe they're the poor man's Chiefs, so what? They still have some really good weapons. Jahan Dotson, they have scary Terry McLaurin, and Logan Thomas is a pretty good tight end. He got a nice seam catch to set up a touchdown later on in the second quarter. Like I said, really like what I see out of DC. There's new ownership, there's new energy, and yes, they are 2-2, but it's a very competitive division. They're gonna be there in the playoff mix, that's for sure. And to go back to the Eagles' struggles, I mean, pass defense looking a little suspect. This experiment with Bradbury in the slot is okay, but it's leaving poor Josh Jobe on an island on the outside. He's getting beaten, not looking so good. Against Sam Howell, he allowed a 97.5 passer rating, a lot of completions. He's gonna have to either improve, or I think Sean Desai may have to figure out a way, bench him, slide James Bradbury back outside, and then figure out this whole issue with the nickel corner, because Avonte Maddox is probably done for the year with that pec injury, and that means a lot of slot receivers can maybe go to town on the Eagles defense. So it's really where you're going to stop the bleeding. I probably prefer to go on the outside because that benefits Bradbury's skill sets even more. He's an all-pro corner. He's coming off a really good year last year, and I think he's better off on the outside, and you have to find a way to get a new cornerback in that slot position. Positive sides from this is probably the best game that the Eagles offense has looked, namely Jalen Hurts. A lot of storylines are coming off that he's been struggling, and he hasn't been struggling. He just hasn't looked insane like he did last year. There have been 3 interceptions coming into this game, a lost fumble, and this is the first time we're seeing that Jalen to AJ connection really start to heat up. Last week against the Bucks, it was 9 catches for 130 yards. This time it was 9 catches for 175 yards and 2 big touchdowns. Remember, AJ Brown, his Twitter handle is always open, and quite literally always open. It was an interesting defensive tactic by Jack Del Rio, who I think is a pretty good DC, and also Ron Rivera, but to have the young cornerback Emmanuel Forbes, who is, let's face it, an NFL toothpick at least, he's giving up a good 50 to 60 pounds on AJ Brown, competed to the best of his skill set, and I think he might improve in a second matchup, but the poor kid struggled just trying to stay with AJ Brown. AJ is a big receiver, he's fast, and it's just so hard to guard when you're giving up so much weight. There was a sequence towards the end of the game, and it's tied. Eagles are in field goal range. I think with the best O-line, thing to do would probably just run it with DeAndre Swift or even Jalen Hurts, get into a more comfortable field goal, and just bleed the clock. Walk off. Jake Elliott has been fantastic to start this year, but they went for it all. I like going for touchdowns. Nick Sirianni said, "I'm never going to apologize for scoring a touchdown." I get it. You give a 7-point lead, and you're going to trust your defense to hold up and protect that lead. The defense was good leading up to it, but they were very inconsistent in that first half, and they picked the worst time to be back in that first half form. Yet again, there were a couple times where Sam Howell got loose with his legs or just with his arm, converted. You're in the red zone. Came down to 2 seconds, needed a touchdown to tie the game, and they did so. Jahan Dotson, great job by the Commanders, and I think we're gonna really dissect how Ron Rivera didn't elect to go for 2. It's easy to do that with hindsight, but I'm not gonna really kill Ron Rivera at that point. Yeah, it's a possibility, but even so, I think the Eagles defense was pretty worn out, and you take your chances with overtime as well. Nonetheless, the Eagles defense clamped down when necessary, 3 and out. They get the ball back to the offense. Jalen Hurts engineers a drive to get Jake Elliott in range, walk-off field goal. Eagles go to 4-0, and like I said, they might be a pretty flawed 4-0 team. They're winning ugly. I'm definitely a little concerned just because they've had issues, and I just don't know how long they're going to get away with it. They have to travel next week to LA, pretty good defensive line, and Puka Nacua is a very good slot receiver. He's been basically the Cooper Kupp reincarnated. I think he would have a pretty good day against this pass defense, so hopefully for the Eagles' sake, that D-line gets home. They had 5 sacks, but not a lot of pressure up the middle. Jalen Carter and Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis were all a little quiet on Sunday, so we need to see them improve. Like to see more of Hassan Reddick. He finally got home, and that's great. We need to see them wreak some havoc against Matthew Stafford and an offense and come away with a victory on the road yet again.